Hi everyone! Today's video is about opening lines. I'm your professor, Dr. Jennie Rosier. Let's get started. Opening lines are any communicative effort that you make to start a conversation with someone else. Sometimes these are referred to as pickup lines. Opening lines are what you say to someone, maybe someone you think is really cute and you want to see if there's something there, or someone that you might have heard about from someone else as being someone that you might want to date. We tend to approach people with an opening line in hopes to gain their attention, in hopes to be special or be unique, but the main goal is to start a conversation, because that conversation will hopefully let us know if this is someone that we might be interested in, or if the other person is someone who might be interested in us. Opening lines are important because they could start a conversation with someone, and that conversation could start a romantic relationship. As most of you are probably looking for, or you might have already found, a romantic relationship, most human beings want a romantic relationship, and they spend a great amount of time and effort looking for one. Opening lines are one way to start a relationship. You say the opening line, hopefully the person thinks it was a good one, and a conversation ensues. The conversation makes you realize that you might like this person and that the other person might like you, and then maybe a dating relationship starts. The benefits to opening lines, to good opening lines, are clear. The consequences are also clear, though. Delivering a bad opening line can lead to rejection, embarrassment. Opening lines are really risky. I mean, the chance of you being rejected sometimes can be really high. Some of you have been rejected hundreds of times with your opening lines. Some of you might be really good at giving opening lines and you haven't faced a lot of rejection, but it's always there. That fear of being rejected is always there. And lots of times when we deliver an opening line, we're doing it in public. We're not doing it in the privacy of our own home. We're doing it in front of other people. So the stakes are even higher, because the rejection is not just you and the person rejecting you. It's other people seeing you get rejected. And that can be really scary. Opening lines make you feel vulnerable. They make you feel like you've put yourself out there, and if the person doesn't like it or accept it, it could damage your self-esteem, it could damage your confidence. There's definite consequences to ineffective opening lines. But the benefits of a good opening line are so great that most of us are willing to try and try again. In your digital workbook, I've provided you with several steps to delivering a good opening line. The first step is to determine your goal. So you want to figure out, is my goal to just start a conversation? Lots of people have a goal of an opening line. They just want to talk to someone else. They just want to start a conversation. You might have a goal, though, of starting a conversation which hopefully will lead to a romantic dating relationship. You might also have a goal of starting a conversation which might lead to a sexual-only relationship, so a purely sexual encounter. You have to figure out what your goal is, because it's really important to determine if the goal that you have and the environment that you're in match up. So you wouldn't want to be delivering an opening line in an inappropriate setting if your goal is to just start a sexual encounter. if you're at, I don't even know, if you're like in a hospital, in the waiting room, or a doctor's office in the waiting room, it would be inappropriate to deliver an opening line that just starts a sexual encounter with the goal of just starting a sexual encounter. Now, if you're at a bar or a club late at night, it's not that inappropriate to deliver an opening line with the goal of just starting a sexual encounter. Think about what your goal is. Figure out if the situation or environment that you're in is appropriate for the goal that you have. And when you are crafting your opening line, really keep that goal in mind. The second thing is to gain clearance. Figure out if the person who you are about to approach is available. Do they look available? Do they look open to a conversation? Do they have a wedding ring on? Are they with someone that they could be romantically or sexually involved with? The last thing you want to do is walk up to someone who's standing next to their boyfriend or girlfriend and hit on them. That's the last thing you want to do. You could easily start a conflict interaction that's a disagreement or a physical altercation. So pay attention to the cues surrounding the person of interest, your target of your opening line. See if they're available. See if they even look like they want to be approached, right? So sometimes you might say, okay, they're not wearing a wedding ring. They're not with anyone who they look like they're romantically or sexually involved with. But they are with a bunch of their friends and they're having a really good time with no romantic interest individuals around them. And so maybe they're just out with their friends and they don't want to be approached. Pay attention before you deliver your opening line. Figure all of this stuff out. The next thing you need to do is create that opening line. Now, here I say a question is probably a really great way, and the research would support that. It's a really great way to start a conversation with someone. Research actually shows that people give lots and lots of questions in the first couple of minutes of an interaction. And so you want to think of a question that's engaging, open-ended. This is key. You should never ask a closed-ended question. If you don't know what that distinction is, if the answer to the question could be yes or no, that is closed-ended. Those are really terrible questions to start a conversation. So, are those your shoes? It's the stupidest question ever, but are those your shoes? Yes. Crickets. There's no more conversation happening after that. You need to make sure that you ask an open-ended question, a question where the answer could not be yes or no, a question where the answer is going to lead to more conversation. So creative, engaging, open-ended. It should be positive. You want to avoid negativity, especially, I'm not saying all the time. It's okay to add some sarcastic humor later in the conversation, but not in that first opening line. It might work for some people, but it doesn't work for most. And so I don't know that you want to run that risk. If you can, you could make it specific to them. If you've been watching them from across the room for a while and you've noticed that they've been doing certain things or saying certain things, you could try to make your questions specific to them. If they're wearing something that is specific, they're wearing a JMU shirt, you could talk to them about their experience at JMU. Now, that doesn't really work if you're all at JMU, like you're at a party at JMU and the person's wearing a JMU shirt. Lots of people are probably wearing a JMU shirt. It's not that, and most of the people at the party go to JMU. It's not that creative to ask a question about, so what's your major at JMU? Or what do you like most about JMU? That's kind of a cop-out. So I'm thinking if you are somewhere else in the world and someone is wearing a shirt that says something about them, you could use that in your question. Lastly, you want to make sure that if you are able to, that you could make your opening line funny. And what I mean by that is if you've gone your whole life and no one has ever called you funny, you should probably try to avoid being funny in an opening line. But if you're called funny a lot, lots of people think you're funny, you're a funny person, you know that you're good at being funny, it might come to your advantage in an opening line. People like funny. And so if you can, try to make it funny. You don't have to, but if you can. So the last thing you need to do is to ask the question. So just walk up to them and ask the question. If you're face to face, make sure that the location is appropriate, like I already said, and that you give the recipient some personal space. So you don't want to overwhelm them with your body. So you don't want to block them from walking away or get too close to them. You still want to give them some personal space. But it is definitely important to be close enough to them, but make sure you give them some personal space. If you're online, now this is the first time I've talked about online in the video, but I do talk about delivering an opening line online a lot in the digital workbook. So make sure you check that out. But if you're online, I suggest that you ask the question privately instead of publicly. And so instead of commenting on someone's photo that they posted on Facebook in a public comment that their friends and family can see and delivering your opening line that way, send them a direct message. You always want to try to have these conversations privately if you can, and so it should not be done in front of everybody on social media or on the internet. Do it as privately as you can. And like I said, in the digital workbook, there are lots of suggestions and tips for delivering that opening line online. As usual, I have several things that you should avoid when you are delivering an opening line. And the first one is avoid trying to be funny if you're not funny. This can backfire, seriously backfire. So really work hard at not using humor if you are not a funny person. You know who you are. Avoid making an overt sexual advance. You have no idea what the other person's goals for the day or the evening are. And so making this an overt sexual advance, you really run the risk of being rejected. One, it's probably too forward, it's creepy, it's nasty. It could be perceived that way. But also, if the other person isn't looking for that, the likelihood of you being rejected is really high. So I would start, no matter what your goal is, start every conversation as if sex is not on your mind. And then once you start to feel out the conversation and you realize that this person might be looking for a sexual encounter as well, then you can start making some, maybe not overt, but some innuendo suggestions, perhaps, depending on how the conversation goes. Don't physically touch or block someone. So later I'm going to talk about physical touch is a way to show that you like someone, or it's a way to flirt with someone in one of the other videos that we make. But with an opening line, your very first encounter, you don't want to walk up to them and touch them immediately. Avoid touching someone. Again, it puts people off right away. It does. And then you don't want to block someone so that they can't get away from you if they have to or want to. Don't get aggressive or angry if you get rejected. The fact of the matter is, not everybody is into everybody. And the likelihood of you getting rejected is like a 50-50 chance. So every time you deliver an opening line, you run the risk of getting rejected. You kind of have to get comfortable with rejection if you're going to deliver opening lines. Well, that's a wrap. I'm Dr. Jennie Rosier. Associate Professor of Communication Studies at James Madison University. I'm also the director of the RLH Project. You can find me on Instagram at Relationships Love Happiness or on Facebook at /Relationships Love Happiness. Thanks for watching.